Today I painted something that I'm calling glitches. So, anyway, I started out the backdrop off camera because I was doing that part downstairs so that I wouldn't get any paint on my desk, since I paint the edges of my canvas as well so that it doesn't look naked, as my teacher put it. And then right here, I'm just filling in these little spheres, which are basically lights, and unfortunately, painting over them completely covered my sketch. I don't know why I was thinking it wouldn't. And it took me a full 2 minutes to color in two tiny spheres with one layer of paint. I'm very good at painting quickly, apparently. And then I guess you could consider this a second layer, but I don't really because it was still wet when I was fooling around with it. And then here I'm just trying to make it thinner so that it dries quicker and I can put the holes in the lights out. The lights that I'm painting right there are the ones that are on the desk next to it. And then right here I'm painting some little wires. And I just wanted to make it look like there were wires coming out of the neck pretty much to keep it with the theme of the hand that I painted back in, I think, February. And I'm happy with the way that the wires turned out, although I kind of wish that I hadn't been too lazy to go downstairs and grab my copper ink. I add the ink at the end of the video, like off camera, so you can't really see it. And I'm just holding the camera with my hands, so I can't see where it is, and I unfortunately didn't record this part because the camera was aimed too high. You can stare at the lovely stones that I have laying around my desk, though. And then I was trying to make the wire here the same shape that it looks on the actual lights, which is too entwined. But later when I was painting over it, as you'll see, the shape kind of disappeared, so it's just like one long tube instead of two twirling wires. And my camera work here is also horrendous. And then these bars are like the glitches because I failed to draw the eyes, if you can't tell from the smudge mark of the graphite. And they're all just different colors that I've used throughout the piece. That's the only thing I used a ruler for. What am I doing off camera? This part is so long. And then, I was mixing paint. Why didn't I just pause the recording? If you can't tell, this is a voiceover and the video is at 2x speed. Why did I not just cut this out? I should cut this out. Whatever, I already edited everything other than the volume. I'm impatient. And then I went over the wires one more time to make them stand out because in person they didn't look as vibrant as they do on camera. On camera you could pick up a lot more of the tone differences and whatnot, but in person it all faded together sort of. And the edges were kind of soft, or there was blank space around them because I didn't fill in the white area entirely. And now that the lights have dried, I'm trying to put back the holes on the light so that you can actually see the light. But I didn't really remember where I put everything, and the paintbrush, even though it's ridiculously fine, wasn't as fine as the pencil I was using because I use mechanical pencils all the time. And they're normally 0.5 or 0.7. As most mechanical pencils are. I think that one might be 0.7, but I prefer 0.5. I just don't have one. And then this is mostly just me filling in that, and it wasn't really turning up off camera, well, in person, so I tried to go over it a bit more later, and it kind of just looked the same, so it's mostly just like the fact that the colors are different on camera than they are off. And then for the skin, I started out with like a creamy tannish color. And then I remembered that different parts of the face are different tones. So I paused it and mixed in some red, some pink, and some white in different areas of the paint so that I could have different tones. And then I kind of just made the whole face really red at that point, as you will see once I stop filling in this area with the tannish pale color. And I avoided the nose because I wanted to make it pop out a bit more, and I hadn't made a lighter color yet because I was a fool. And I kind of messed up the lips when I transferred over to painting because that was the part of the sketch that I was most proud of, and I covered over the lines a bit. But I'm actually really happy with the way that the lips end up turning out. And then at that point, that was when I paused it and I went into the different tones. So I mixed a drop of red and a drop of white, and then I slowly mixed that into my color that I had already for the skin. And then I had a tiny bit of red mixed in with it at other points to make a darker version of that color because I didn't really want to use a lot of black here because I felt like that would muddy the drawing a bit. And I'm really happy with the way that it turned out with only using the black to get the gray of the lights. I was kind of having difficulty blending it for some reason. I don't really know why, but it ended up not being too bad, too sloppy. The forehead was kind of a mess because you could see all the brush strokes, and I was too lazy to go back and fix it. And then I got the lighter color, the one that was mixed with white, for the highlights here. And I was like, wait a second, that's not a very, like, obvious. I mean, that's too obvious of a change between the colors, so I went back and blended everything together. This audio is a disaster. And then I brought back the dark original color for that one part that I just colored in and then under the nose, but in person it didn't look like there was a difference there. So I added blue because I didn't want to add black. And I really should have just mixed like the Bahama blue with the bright red paint and worked from there and with a purple, but instead I made a blue, which was just a disaster and a bad idea. Like, if I hadn't added as much of the blue as I had, it would have turned out fine, but it was kind of sloppy. And then right here, I'm just adding the highlights on the forehead and trying to get the shape. But as you can see, you can clearly see the texture of it. And then this is where I added the blue. Even though your brow bone is supposed to be really light. And then the neck was just a disaster, and I painted over it like 7 times with slightly different paint every time. This was my first attempt. As you can see, it's way too blue. So I added back in some of the original color and it looked kind of better, but it was still not great. And then I was trying to keep the highlights, so I used the same colors I did above right there. And then, except it was more creamy because it wasn't over the ugly blue one. And then I tried to add like the highlighted color there. On the side where my palette is, you can see the colors. The top leftish is the really pale one, and then the lower left one is the pinky one, and then the bottom right one is the red, and then the top right was the blue. And honestly, the nose was the hardest part of the whole thing. And I think I was kind of abusing this brush, which was like $15, so that's not good. If you hear panting, that's my dog. I'm petting her. And then I was trying to add some highlights because in person you couldn't see the difference between the nose and the rest of the face. And it was just a muddy disaster pretty much. And then I realized that the edge was too vivid, so I changed it up and I blended, and it honestly wasn't really going that great. As you can see, it looks like she has a nosebleed or something. And at this point, the shape of the lips is completely different than it was with the original sketch because I covered over a bit. And at this point, I'm really realizing that the blue is too blue, so I'm covering it up with the original tan, and then I'm adding in some lighter spots on the forehead and abusing this brush as well. And then I'm trying to add the highlights for the shape of the lips, and then I'm failing to blend it out very well. And I'm trying to cover up some of the blue there, and then I add the highlights again because they seem to have faded somehow. And then I'm adding the just pure bright red for the lips, and I actually really like the way that the color turned out because I thought it was going to be like closer to a carmine, but it ended up being soft, and I like blended it out a bit, and I'm just so happy with the way that the coloring turned out. But as you can see, there's like the inside of the mouth, and I didn't have a black. So I went in with the blue. I just went in with the blue color for some reason, thinking that would help. And then I went over the red some more to brighten them up. And I fiddled with the shape of the lips a bit. And as you can see, the highlights there are kind of bright, like around the lips. And then once that's done, I went back into the neck and tried to warm up that color a bit. If I just like reproduced the color that was on the bottom, it probably would have been fine, but it was even bluer in person. So it just wasn't going that well. And then it kind of looks like the wire is strangling her, which isn't what I wanted. I wanted it just to be like loosely hung. So I had to fiddle with it a bit and try to brighten up right outside the wire to fix the illusion that it was strangling her. And then with the color that I had then, the chin just blended in with the neck, which was the exact opposite of what I wanted and what I was trying to avoid in the first place. And it was kind of just a disaster. So I brightened up the chin a bit, and then I was like, oh no, the nose doesn't look right anymore, and neither does the forehead, and I kind of overworked the nose a lot. and the forehead because every time I worked on it, the texture became more evident. And then I messed up with the camera work again. And I tried to make it warmer so that it was like the same tone hue as the face. And I kind of went into the bar right there. And then I realized that the wire was basically the same color as the skin, so I tried to make it more red, and that just made it blend in more. So I went into the skin again instead of just getting the red that I had out, which would have fixed it. And then with a ton of the excess pink that I had made, I filled in a tiny bar that was right there. And then I went in on the hair. Off camera, I fixed up some details and stuff because I needed to lean in and the camera wouldn't have worked like that. And my hand was exhausted. I'm really happy with the way that the hair turned out. You can't really see what I'm doing right here though because my hand's in the way. And I have a pure purple color that I just got straight out of the bottle. And then my pinky color is a mix between the bright red, the coral reef, white, and some other colors that I forget. And then I'm covering up the bar right there just because it's easier to get the texture of the hair if I cover it up, but you can still see the sketch through the hair. And then I'm trying to add highlights with the pink right here, and I wanted to do the shading with the purple. And then I'm trying to fix the texture. And then I wanted the bottom to be purple, but you can't even see what I'm doing right here because of my poor videography skills. I think that's the word. I'm not sure. And then I mixed in the pink to get the texture that I wanted and the lighting. And then I brushed out some purple. And off camera later, I added in some highlights and texturized it a bit more so that you could see like some individual strands of hair instead of just the like idea of hair being there. And I'm happy with the way that it turned out. And I also blended together some stuff so that it didn't look as tacky, I guess. And as you can see right here, when I was fixing under the light, I kind of went over that color and it ruined the shape of it. So it looked like the hair wasn't coming from the right spot. So I worked on that area for quite a bit. Well, I came back to it. And then here I'm trying to make it my darkest area because it's like tucked behind. So it's just purple. It's just pure purple. Although later, want to know what I added for shading? Blue! And it looked horrific. It was just so, it was the darkest spot in the entire painting. And that was so far from what I wanted. Anyway, the weird shapes there are like general of what it was supposed to be, and then I was gonna have some loose strands of hair tying it together. Didn't really turn out, so off camera I filled in the whole thing with pink and added a tiny bit of the light blue that I used on the lights for some more like highlights, I guess, and like the texture. And again, my lovely skills covering up the area that I'm painting on camera. It took a ton of work to get through this area. It was not going very well, and as you can see, it looks very geometric, not super organic. And then this is literally the worst angle that the camera's been at the entire video. What am I doing? Much better. Okay. And then I was trying to add some purple there so that you could see the difference between the hair and the skin. But at the same time, I really wanted the hair there to just be pink. So, difficulties. And I just blended it out a bit more. I can't remember if I did that off camera or on camera. Probably on. I don't know. We'll see. I painted this yesterday. I said today at the beginning of the video, but it was a lie. And then this is how it turned out, and I'm super happy with it.